in the dusty stretch of Texas where the wind carried stories of broken dreams and unexpected miracles, a poor woman named Helena walked with trembling feet toward the largest ranch in the county, clutching an old shawl around her shoulders, her eyes shadowed with weeks of sleepless worry after losing her parents, her home and nearly her hope. And though she had nothing left but the strength inside her bones, she whispered a prayer as she approached the towering wooden door, praying the ranch owner might give her any kind of work, kitchen, cleaning, anything that paid enough to keep her alive for one more month. But when she knocked with quivering knuckles, the door swung open and revealed a tall cowboy with broad shoulders, sun-carved features, and eyes the color of a storm rolling over the plains. A man named Colton Hayes, rumored across the territory to be cold, unapproachable, and uninterested in anything except his cattle. Yet in that moment, as he looked at Helena, thin, exhausted, trying so hard to stay brave, something unexpected flickered in his expression, and Helena swallowed her fear and said softly, "Sir, I'm looking for work, any work at all. I can cook, clean, sew, whatever you need." But Colton didn't answer immediately. Instead, he studied her, as though trying to understand how someone with such gentle eyes carried so much silent pain. And after a long pause, he finally spoke in a low, firm voice. "The only position open on this ranch is the position of wife." And Helena felt her breath leave her body, thinking she must have misheard, that this cowboy was making a cruel joke. But he wasn't smiling. His face was serious, almost wounded as he continued. "I don't need a maid, I don't need a cook. I need someone who can bring warmth back to this house, someone who can remind me how to live again." And though Helena was stunned, she could feel the truth in his voice, a loneliness carved deeper than the canyon walls. But she shook her head, whispering, "Sir, I didn't come here for anything like that. I just need enough wages to survive." And she turned to leave, her heart pounding. But Colton stepped forward and gently caught her wrist, not with force, but with a quiet desperation, and he said, "I'm not asking you to love me, not today, not tomorrow. I'm offering protection, a home, and a life where you don't have to beg anyone for scraps again." And Helena, overwhelmed by the sincerity in his voice, hesitated as she looked up at the grand ranch behind him, the warm light inside, the promise of safety, the shelter she hadn't known in years, and something inside her whispered that maybe fate had led her here. Maybe destiny wasn't as cruel as she believed. So Colton invited her inside, offering her water, food, and a chance to breathe for the first time in days. And as she ate, he told her about his past, how he once had a fiancée who left him for a richer man, how he built this ranch from nothing, how he promised himself never to open his heart again, but living alone in an empty house had eaten away at him more than heartbreak ever could. And Helena felt a strange warmth in her chest, seeing the fragile human beneath the rugged cowboy exterior. She slept that night in the guest room, not as his wife, but as a weary traveler given a scrap of kindness. And as she lay beneath a soft blanket, she stared at the ceiling, asking herself why this cowboy offered marriage to a stranger, whether it was loneliness, compassion, or something deeper he couldn't say out loud. And when morning came, she found him outside feeding the horses, and he looked at her with a question in his eyes. "Have you decided?" And Helena, still unsure, but unable to deny the peace she felt for the first time in months, replied softly, "I'll stay. But marriage, give me time." And Colton nodded, respecting her boundaries, saying, "You take as long as you need." And from that day forward, Helena worked around the ranch, not as a servant, but as someone finding her place, and Colton kept a respectful distance, watching her from afar with quiet admiration, noticing how she laughed for the first time in years when she played with the ranch dog, how she hummed while cooking, how she brought warmth to every corner of his cold home. And slowly, without intending to, she began to see him differently, not as a stranger who made a shocking proposal, but as a man who gave her safety when the world abandoned her, a man who carried storms inside but spoke gently to her, a man who healed her without realizing it. And day by day, Destiny pulled them closer until one evening, as the sun bled gold across the fields, Helena whispered to herself, maybe I am meant to be his wife after all. But fate had other plans, and that night a threat would rise that forced Helena to make a choice far sooner than she expected, setting the stage for the moment she would see what Colton truly meant when he said he needed her more than anything else in this world. The danger came under the cloak of night when Helena was closing the barn doors and heard the crunch of boots behind her, turning to find two grim-faced men, her late father's debt collectors, men who once threatened to drag her away when she couldn't pay the money he owed before he died, men she had run from across counties, and now they cornered her with wicked grins, saying, "Pretty little Helena, you thought you could hide forever? Your father's debt belongs to you now." But before she could scream, before they could grab her, a gun cocked behind them and Colton's thunderous voice roared, "Touch her, and your bodies will feed the buzzards." And the men turned to find the furious cowboy, jaw clenched, rage burning in his eyes like wildfire. And in that moment, Helena realized Colton wasn't just offering her a home. He was willing to risk everything for her. A fight broke out, rough, brutal, with Colton tackling one man to the dirt while the other swung a knife. But Helena grabbed a shovel and struck the attacker before he could stab Colton, giving the cowboy enough time to pin him down. And when the men fled into the night, bleeding and terrified, Helena collapsed into Colton's arms, shaking, and he held her tightly, whispering against her hair, "I won't let anyone take you. Not now, not ever." And she felt something inside her break open, fear, exhaustion, and then a flooding wave of love she had tried to deny, and for the first time she hugged him back, not out of fear but out of needing him, wanting him, realizing that this rough, storm-hearted cowboy was the only person who had ever fought for her. He carried her inside, bandaged her hands, and stayed beside her as she trembled. And when she finally calmed, she looked into his eyes and said the words she had been afraid to speak. "Colton, if the offer is still open, I'll take the position of wife." And Colton froze, eyes widening with disbelief, because he had waited patiently, respectfully, never pushing her, never expecting anything. But now she was choosing him, truly choosing him, and he whispered, voice breaking, "Are you sure, sweetheart?" And Helena touched his cheek gently and replied, "You gave me a home when I had none, protection when I was helpless, and you showed me what it feels like to matter. Yes, I'm sure." And Colton, overwhelmed with emotion, pulled her into his arms, holding her as though she were the most precious thing on earth. They married quietly under the old oak tree behind the ranch, with only the breeze and the horses as witnesses, and Colton slipped a simple ring onto her finger, whispering, "You're my home." "No." And Helena's eyes filled with tears because, for the first time in her life, she wasn't running, she wasn't afraid, she was loved. Married life bloomed between them like spring after a long winter, with Helena filling the house with warmth and laughter, and Colton treating her with a tenderness that melted the walls. She built around her heart, and soon the ranch workers whispered that Colton Hayes, once the coldest man alive, now smiled every time his wife's voice floated through the house. And though they still faced hardships, storms, cattle losses, memories of past pain, they faced them together, hands intertwined, hearts steady. One evening, as they watched the sunset blaze across the horizon, Helena leaned her head on Colton's shoulder and said softly, "I came here begging for work, and found a life I never dreamed I deserved." And he kissed the top of her head, replying, "I offered you the only position I truly needed filled, and you made this ranch a home." And their love became the kind that turned whispers into legends, the kind told around campfires and passed down through generations. The story of a poor woman who knocked for work and found the one man whose heart had been waiting for her all. A long proof that sometimes destiny doesn't knock, it answers. My dear viewers, if this emotional cowboy legend story, love story, touched your heart, if Helena and Colton's journey proved that destiny can find you even in your darkest moments, then don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Your support helps bring more powerful stories, more inspiration, and more heart-touching tales your way. Hit the bell icon so you never miss the next story. Stay blessed, stay inspired, and keep believing in true love.